We're ecstatic to be here, getting ready to go out and have a little practice, trying to get ready for third round with Notre Dame. We did some very good things last night. I wasn't pleased with our defense in the first half, but other than that, I thought we did some really good things, and it was a fantastic time to be a basketball coach when in the locker room last night with these guys.
All right, we'll take questions for the student athletes at this time. Cool, no questions. Here in the third row at the end of the row.
Jeff Gravely, WRAL. For Marcus and Bryce, just the preparing for Notre Dame the third time is an advantage, having already played them twice and considering they were really two different games.
Start with Marcus.
Well, I mean, I would say it's an advantage, but they also have the advantage of playing us twice as well. So I think it kind of cancels out. I think it is better than not having played a team because you at least know what to expect and you know the athleticism and the size and the shooting that they bring, and you've played against it. So that's one thing we need to prepare for is how they space the floor and how good they are at getting in the lane and creating opportunities for their shooters. So, it'll be a challenge, but having played them a couple times, I'm sure they feel comfortable with what we do, and I think we feel pretty comfortable with what they do.
And Bryce?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an advantage just because we can learn from both games. And the first time we did play very well, but then we kind of let up on them. And then the second game, we actually kind of blew them out there at the end of the first half. And I mean, we just got to learn from those mistakes in both of those games. I mean, we didn't play well defensively in some parts of each of those games.
We'll go one row back at the end of the fourth row.
Yeah, right here. Henry Bushnell, SB Nation. Marcus, you said in your senior night speech that Coach often had a lot more confidence in you than you did in yourself. Was that more of a thing early in your career, or was it even a thing this year when you were going through some of your shooting struggles?
Yeah, a lot of that was early in my career as a freshman, kind of being thrown into the fire, having to play a lot of minutes early, where I, wasn't necessarily prepared to be a high-level ACC guard right away. But even throughout this year, struggling, I still had some confidence, but I don't think his confidence in me ever wavered, and I think that helped me get through a lot of my issues.
What kind of things did he do or some of the other assistant coaches do to sort of keep your confidence up and try to get it to the place that their confidence was?
They would just remind me that, it didn't matter how many shots I missed, that they always thought the next one would go in, and to not lose confidence in my shot, and that they needed me to, stay aggressive because it's important to this team. So those kind of things, they go a long way when you're trying to get yourself going, and, that's been able to happen these last couple of games.
We'll go on the other side of the curtain here. We got a couple in the front row here.
Brett Friedlander, Wilmington Star News. Bryce, I think it was you at the ACC tournament who said that you thought that the turning point really was the second half of the Notre Dame game in South Bend. What did you guys learn from that, and what have you taken now to get on this roll?
The first thing we've learned is that defense wins championships. I mean, we've really played well defensively, especially at the end of the first half and the beginning of the second. And, I mean, that's basically what we learned mostly out of that game. We can't let up on them because they are a very good team, and they will make runs during the game. And, I mean, that's pretty much it.
We'll stay here in the front row. Yeah, go ahead.
Greg Logan, Newsday for Kennedy and Joel. Can you guys please discuss your matchups with Auguste and Jackson? And
Is his name Auguste?
I might have mispronounced it.
Because if it is, I've been mispronouncing the damn thing for 3 years.
Well,
let's go with August.
August.
Okay.
It's me.
Scare me to death. I'd rather you mispronounce it than me. He can get back at me. He can't get back at you.
Okay. But can you guys discuss those matchups and also the nature of that blowout and the level of confidence that you can take from that going into this game?
Start with Joel and then go to Kennedy.
I just know Jackson is a great player. He's very explosive. So we're just going to try our best just to keep him out of the lane so he won't attack and either get all the way to the hole or try to kick out for the three-pointer. That's what we want to do, and that's what I'm going to try to do to just try to stay in front of him. I mean, it was good to beat them like that, but, like we said earlier, we beat them, or they beat us 3 out of the last 4. So, we still got to give some more revenge to them. So,
Kennedy?
Zach is a great player. He's very active. Coach McGrath mentioned this morning that he's averaging 1 rebounds than Bryce, and Bryce has been playing better than anybody else, I think. So that's big for their team. My goal going into that game is to really lock down defensively and really focus on that for the entire game. And however long I play it is what it is. I'm just going to try to give my best effort.
All right, we'll go all the way over here on row 3.
Marilyn Payne, WRLSportsFan.com. I'll go Joel and Marcus with this one. You just mentioned revenge. How much do you anticipate Notre Dame coming out with something to prove after you guys did what you did to them in the ACC tournament? And then, Marcus, you touched on their familiarity with you guys just as you are familiar with them. So how much of an advantage is that for those guys?
Start with Joel.
We know they're going to come out aggressive, especially at this time of the year. You got to be the ones to come out and attack first. So, especially with the way we beat them, they're going to come out pretty aggressive. But like I've been saying, if we focus on what we want to do and just focus on our efforts and our defense intensity and all that stuff, everything else will take care of itself.
And Marcus?
Yeah, and then in terms of familiarity, like we know what worked and what hasn't worked against them, and they feel the same way. Obviously, they're going to try some different things from the tournament, and I think we're going to try some different things just to, not give them the same look, because it's easy to prepare for something you've seen a bunch of times. But yeah, I guess if I was them, I would try to use that ACC game. Like if that was us that got blown out, we would be talking about that nonstop up until the game, trying to get ourselves fired up for revenge, and I'm sure they're feeling that way. But at the same time, revenge can't be the only motivating factor in a game that gets you to the Final Four. That's the biggest thing. Is this game is to go to the Final Four. I don't care what happened in the past, and I'm sure they don't either. This is a one-game opportunity to change your season.
Any other questions? Okay, and here in the second row, Dana.
Dana O'Neill with ESPN. Marcus and Bryce, I think for a while people questioned the defensive fortitude of this team, and I'm just wondering how you guys kind of responded to that and just sort of how you grew into the defensive team that we're seeing these days.
Start with Bryce, and then we'll go to Marcus.
Well, that's just the one thing Coach has been emphasizing all year. We haven't really been playing well defensively. We've just been outscoring a lot of teams. And, there was the one game we played against Maryland. We really played very well defensively, and Coach has always been emphasizing that we need to play every game like that. So, that's just the biggest thing. We've just been trying to just get better every game, and the last couple of games we've really been doing pretty well.
And Marcus?
Yeah, we learned through our, some of our losses this year that, a lot of times we go back and review the tape, and it's the lack of concentration and effort on defense that caused the other team to get the win. It was never us not shooting the ball well or anything, because we usually get a lot of our points from the paint and do well in transition and stuff like that. So, and then Coach, like I've been saying the past several weeks, Coach has reminded us several times that he's never had a championship team that hasn't been great defensively. He said the 05 team was great defensively, and then the 09 team kind of turned it up at the end of the year and was terrific on that end of the floor. And I think that hit home with us because that's where we want to be. That's where we want to get to. And if that's what we need to do to get there, then I think that's why we've seen the change in our defense.
All right, we'll go back to the end of row 3 over here. Yep.
Jeff Gravely, WRL. This is a question for whoever had the most turnovers in the last 2 games against Notre Dame, and you guys can figure that out. The
head
role
coach.
No. The role of turnovers in this game, when you guys lost at Notre Dame, you had 13. They had 19 points off turnovers. And then in the ACC tournament, you guys forced them into 17 turnovers. What does the role of turnovers play in this game tomorrow?
Why don't we start with Justin, even though I don't know who had the most turnovers.
Justin's a bright youngster. He'll handle it.
Yeah.
I guess.
Where my chair at? Where my name at, though?
You guys don't have to put up with him this. I have to put up with him every daggum day. Yeah, you're doing a nice job, Theo.
Okay, I'm just going to check on.
Yeah, I appreciate you. It's like I told you, I never have to congratulate him. He congratulates himself. I've been coaching 28 years. I've never had one freaking player to walk up in the middle of a damn press conference. That's the guy that mimicked Coach Larry Fedora last night in the locker room. You guys want to see something funny, you ought to see that. All right, Justin, now that your classmate has screwed your whole thought process up.
I think the biggest thing, we took care of the ball a whole lot better in the second game. We were able to force them into a whole lot more turnovers, which got us out in transition, which is where we are at our best. First game, I think they turned the ball over twice. So when we can't get them to turn the ball over, they got a whole lot of offensive rebounds, which made us not be able to get out in transition as well. So I think that's the whole thing. Whenever we can force them into one shot and get out in transition, that's whenever we're at our best.
Okay, let's go back over here on this side in the front row. Who had the most turnovers?
Justin, when Marcus gets started the way he did yesterday, how much do the rest of you guys feed off of that? Because I think you made, as a team, the first 6 or 7 3-pointers. Is there kind of a contagious effect to that?
I mean, yeah. I mean, whenever somebody comes out like that on your team, I mean, you just got to pick your game up even more. I mean, the amount of confidence that he had, I think he hit his first 4 and then hit a jump shot at the free throw line. So whenever you see that, I mean, you just kind of you feel like you have to pick it up. So it was great to see him play like that. I mean, it's what we're used to him doing. So at the end of the day, we need him to do that.
Hey, Roy, Andrew Carter. I think you went to this level of the tournament 6 out of the first 9 years at UNC. It's been a bit now. Do you have a greater appreciation for reaching this point?
I had a greater appreciation for it my second year at Kansas, because first year we didn't get a chance to play in the tournament because of problems that had happened before I got there. And I've always appreciated every single day in the NCAA tournament. That with each level you go, the stakes get a little higher. You get a little more excitement, a little more intensity level in your practices, a little more attention from the players. Yesterday was one of the worst, best days I've ever had. You know, the late starting time. I watched 3 tapes of Indiana during the day. You know, I mean, that's a little bit overwhelming because there's only so much you can learn, but you're sitting there and you think you're stupid if you watch the same thing over again, but you don't want to leave any stone unturned kind of thing. So there's, with each level to go is the excitement level, I think, with the kids is the thing I notice the most.
We'll stay in the second row with Jonathan.
Jonathan Tannenwald from the Philadelphia Inquirer. It's playing a team for the 3rd time in a season. It's happened fairly often for you. Are there things in common across the time, or is it just a matter of each team presents its own challenges?
Well, each team does present its own challenges, and each team changes from one week, one game, 1 month to the next. We go up to South Bend, and they kicked our tails. And they were more aggressive, greater intensity, greater effort, more concentration. And then we get them in the tournament, and it flipped. And, both teams are familiar with each other. I don't think there's any advantage either way because it's the same for both teams. You know, if I had a spy inside the Notre Dame office that told me what they didn't practice every day, that'd be an advantage. But we've played 2 games out in the middle of God and everybody, and so it's the same thing. And what's going to happen, and the biggest factor in tomorrow's game is who's going to play the best tomorrow and who's going to have the concentration and the focus.
We'll go here, end of row 1, and then we'll go back to Josh. Okay.
Nicole Auerbach, USA Today. Roy, so much talk about the ACC and how well the league is performing, guaranteed a spot in the title game. Are you one of the people who do measure league relative strength by NCAA tournament performance?
It depends on which side of the fence I'm on. Yeah, I think it's the best choice right now. But the reality is there's a lot of good teams. There's a lot of good leagues. I happen to think the ACC is the best league from top to bottom. The depth that we have. I mean, Boston College didn't win a game. They almost got us, and they had stayed at state by 1 with less than 2 seconds to play. The top part of this league has just been, I shouldn't say top part, I'll say top half of the league was just off the charts this year. There are other good leagues. How you evaluate it, there's only one way that you can really evaluate it, and that's if you have personal competition from one league with the other or the NCAA tournament. The Big Ten, I think, ACC Challenge, we as an ACC won it like 10 years in a row, and I think they've won it the last 4 or 5 years. You see, that's one way to measure it, and then the other way is the NCAA tournament play, and we've done pretty well this year.
All right, we'll go middle of row 4. Josh, just raise your hand real quick so we can see you. Go ahead.
Josh Newman, Asbury Park Press. I know for the Carolina family it's been a difficult year with the passing of Coach Smith, the passing of Coach Guthridge. At this point in the season, as someone who was very close to them and, they were some mentors to you, obviously, do you find yourself thinking more about them or the lessons that they taught you?
There's not a day goes by that I don't think the lessons I learned from Coach Smith doesn't come up in my mind. And Coach Guthridge to some degree, too. I mean, Coach Guthridge, it was even a different relationship because 1968-69 school year, I played on the freshman team at North Carolina, and he was my coach. And so those 2 guys in basketball, to me, there's not a day goes by. But with those 2, there's not a day goes by that I don't think of some other things they taught me. My high school coach, Buddy Baldwin, is a great mentor, still is. Coach Smith, Coach Guthers, and I stole a lot of things from Coach Bob Knight. He was great to me. Coach John Thompson, Jerry Tarkanian, and all those guys have been great influences on me. But Coach Smith and Coach Guthers, I think about those guys every day.
We'll go one row back into row 5. Go ahead.
Bryce is closing in on the single-season rebound record at Carolina. What has allowed him to just have that success on the glass this year?
He's always been a good rebounder. At times he's been a great rebounder. He rebounds in his area really well, and sometimes he can go and get it outside of his area. There's times that he can get a guy that's fairly close and get a body on him and box him out. He gets to the unbelievable stage. That's where he falls down sometimes because he doesn't put a body on him and get it. But one of the top 2 or 3 rebounders I've ever coached in 28 years, the quick jump, the being willing to go after the ball, and the pride that he takes in rebounding the basketball. I think all of those are important to him, and not just a quick jump, but how high he jumps too.
We'll come up 2 rows to the end of row 3.
Hey, Coach, Jeff Gravely, WREL. With the top half of the league off the charts and the fact that we have 4 in the final 8, what does it say about your team that you were able to win the regular season and the tournament?
Well, I'm really proud of what we've done, and I think doing that in the ACC is something that we'll be even more proud of as time goes along, because I do believe it was the best league in basketball this year. And I think it'll stand the test of time. When we first went to 15 teams, you take the first 10 or 15 years, I think it'll surpass anything in any other league has ever done. But no, it's a feeling of pride for us. There's no question about that.
We'll stay in row 3 over there, Adam.
Yeah, Adam Kilgore, The Washington Post. How much have you watched the tape from the ACC tournament against Notre Dame? Like what have you taken out of it? And is there a psychological challenge, to get your players to take out what they need to take out without sort of having them take for granted a similar outcome because it was so recent and because it was such a big, spread?
Well, the second part of your question is really a good question. First part, how much have I done? Hell, I got home at 2 o'clock in the morning, so we haven't done a lot of tape watching today. I watched tape of their game last night. This is one of the only thing I've watched. I haven't watched our tape against them yet. It is a challenge. You try to watch the tape. You try to pick out some things that you say, hey, we've got to do that better because it's really important. If it's not important, don't worry with it. If it's out of your control, don't worry with it. I set up in some kind of room like this in 1991 before half of you guys were even born. And they said, do you think that your lack of free throw shooting is going to catch up with you? Because at that time there were 64 teams in the tournament, and University of Kansas was 64th. I said, well, there's only 2 teams left playing, so we got those other 62 suckers without shooting free throws very well. But what you do is figure out what's important and what has a major outcome, a factor in the outcome of the game. So when I'm looking at that tape, I'm going to say, well, that was because things were going really good for us. That was because it was really going bad for them. That's not going to be part of the game tomorrow. And then I'll try to look and see, okay, now we've got to be careful because that's going to be a big factor in the game. And I'm sure that Michael will be doing the same kind of thing. We'll look at the tape, look at all the stats, frontward, backwards, upside down, and everything you possibly can because you don't want to leave any stones unturned, as I said earlier. But the game is going to be played and won, not just played, but it's won tomorrow. All the other stuff in the past. We talked about revenge a little bit. In 2012, we had a really good team. If Kendall Marshall and John Henson don't get hurt at the end of the season, I think we had the best team. I've told Cal that. I'd like to have played them on Monday night. They beat us at Kentucky by 1 when Anthony Davis blocked John Henson's shot. So we were really good. If I'm not mistaken, we got beat at Florida State that year by 33. I wrote the number 33 up on the board. It stayed up there from the day we played Florida State until the day our season was over with. We played Florida State in the finals of the ACC tournament that year, and they still beat our butts. So you can't just get caught up and think that that's going to do everything. We've got to prepare and say, again, what's most important. If I'll use Indiana as an example. If three-point shooting is the most important, we've got to try to do a great job against them. But if that's going to be the most important, that's going to be a negative for us. So we try to do everything we could to make the inside game, the rebounding, be the most important. Try to make sure we outscored them in the paint. So you're always playing little games like that. And you know what? Sometimes you hit one right and sometimes you screw it up, and it has nothing to do with the game. So but still, it's what we do.
All right, we got a couple up here up front over here.
Roy, have you had a chance to talk to Jared since he got hired at Stanford? And much like you were talking about how Coach Smith and Coach Guthridge were your influences and mentors, do you have a sense that some younger coaches like Jared look that way at you?
I've talked to Jared several times this week, and he's sensational. I'm extremely happy for him. And yes, he's been one of those kind of youngsters that says great things and says that I mean more to him than it really does. He knows I'm getting old and wants me to feel better, that kind of thing. But we've had some great conversations. I talked to the athletic director at Stanford. We had some great conversations, and I'm really, really pleased for him. But I feel fortunate. I'm watching Mark Turgeon play, or his team play, and I get fired up just watching him. And Turge sent me a note one time and said, "Coach, this is hard. You always made it look so easy." And I said, that's not true. But I feel very fortunate to have some great youngsters, and some of them not as young anymore, but the guys that played and coached with us that are doing well.
We'll go with the other end of row one here.
Roy, Jaden Daly, Daily Dose of Hoops. With the 09 championship team, there was a refuse-to-lose mentality that Tyler had that really was contagious to his teammates on the floor. Through this tournament, especially with last night, do you see a similar quality in Marcus?
Marcus has those great leadership qualities, and he can say it verbally and do it. Tyler Hansbrough just led by example. Because when he said something, everybody shut up and listened. But he didn't do that very often. He just played. But that team, Tyler carried us for a couple of years. But that year itself, Tyler carried us, and then he had a little bit less and a little bit less. And at the tournament, Wayne Ellington, Ty Lawson, Danny Green, all those guys really jumped right in. And we were, regardless of what people say, we were a great three-point shooting team. And they carried the load for us. Tyler scored 17 points in the national championship game. And Wayne scored 17 in the first half, I think it was. But those guys, Tyler particularly, and to a lesser degree Wayne and Danny and Ty, they sort of adopted Tyler's thing. He came back just to win a national championship. That's the only reason he came back. He loved college, but he wanted to have one more chance to win a national championship. So those guys sort of fell in line, but we got so much better during the course of the season, and then at the end of the year we really locked down people defensively. So that was just an extremely talented team, much less the motivation that they had.
All right, we'll go all the way in the back, Shannon, at the end of the row, and then we'll go to you, Luke, after that.
Substitute Luke.
Ladies first.
Thank you. Ryan, Chicago Tribune. Roy, what were your expectations of Notre Dame when they joined the league, and have they surpassed that? And maybe a second thing to that is just with them being in back-to-back Elite Eights, should they have a higher national profile or reputation than what they do?
I guess it depends on what you thought of before. I thought they were pretty doggone good before. They had, gosh, I don't think I'm wrong. I think they had a pretty significant run the last couple of years in the Big East. That their program was at the highest level. And so my expectations were that they would continue to do that and would make the ACC even more competitive with another big-time team that had a chance to win national championships and play on the major level and in the major picture all the time. So I didn't have that big a difference. Now, if somebody had a lesser opinion of them to start with, then they could really change. But I've always thought that they've been really a big-time program anyway. And even going back when I was an assistant and Digger was there, but I think Mike has just really done a great job. And I happen to like Mike a lot, so it's easy to say those kind of things too.
All right, and we'll come up two more rows. And Luke?
Luke DeCockerell, News and Observer. A number of the players have mentioned not the Virginia loss, but really the film session after the Virginia loss is the kind of wake-up call for them. Do you remember going into there and kind of going through that film session? Was there anything unusual you remember about that or their reaction to it?
No, I remember it. There's no question. There's been 3 or 4 times this year that we've sat them down and had everybody watch every single play, the entire game. And I think the effort, the intensity that Virginia played with, and the precision, the execution, not just the effort, the execution of what they did. I can still remember, I think it was Wilkins, the sprint back that he did, and when Malcolm made this great play and knocked a pass away that we'd thrown about 3/4 of the court. And Malcolm made a great play, can't be a bigger fan of Malcolm Brogdon than me, but I showed them the Wilkins kid who sprinted from under the goal when he was right there if Malcolm hadn't knocked it away. So we talked about that a great deal and said this is the team that's won the last 2 ACC championships. the regular season championships 2 years in a row. That's what you have to do, and you have to do it not just at home. You have to do it on the road as well. And with each and every loss this year, I think our team's learned a lot. But I think the way that we came back after the Virginia game, and as I said the other day, play Syracuse in a very emotional senior day, and then play Duke at Duke, I think that we did gain a lot from that film session that day.
All right, we'll come over on this side of the curtain in row 3. Go ahead.
Art.
Art Chansky, WCHO Radio. Roy, you mentioned 1991, and then to feed off your answer to Andrew's question, I've heard over the last few days coaches say that the most pressure is on the Final 8 game because you have to win it to get to the promised land. Now, you've been there 7 times. You've been in so many of these games. Is the pressure in this game more pronounced for you and the team that you feel, or have you been there so many times it's just another big game?
Well, it's another big game, and I'm glad I've been in a lot of them, Art, but I really, who knows what I'm going to feel like tomorrow. Yesterday I felt about as much pressure as I've ever felt. And then going back, I felt that same way, before we played Providence. So I think it is just perhaps it gets a little bit more. I've never taken away the difference between Sweet 16 and Elite 8, and I've heard a lot of people say that that's the most pressure trying to get in. I've always thought that the most pressure is trying to win the championship. I've been there twice and lost in the championship game, and there was a heck of a lot of pressure because the feeling that I had was drastically different from what Jimmy Boeheim and Mike Krzyzewski had. So that was where, to me, it's the difference. Everybody talks about their Final Four teams. You can talk to anybody at Kansas, and they'll say, we went to the Final Four in 71, 74, 91, 93. They remember the Final 4 years, so it does get a lot of attention. But from a coaching perspective, I don't think I'll feel any more stress. I hope I don't feel any more stress tomorrow than I did yesterday. The game's an hour earlier, so maybe that'll take away some of it. But I understand the question, and there is a drastic difference because, again, it wouldn't take me very long. I could sit here and I could name you every Final Four team that North Carolina had since '67. I don't think I'd miss it.
We'll come back over on this side in row 2.
Roy, you referenced the 2012 team that came close and had the injuries and didn't make it. And obviously it's been a difficult time for you and your program the past several years. Would a win tomorrow provide some sense of vindication for you, or kind of would it mean more for you?
Not a vindication. I mean, the attacks have been, not that old Roy can't coach a lick, the attacks have been in the other areas kind of thing. And I think coaching is getting your kids to do what you want them to do it and try to do it more than the other coach does, gets his players to do what they want to, he wants them to do. But vindication, I'm never going to get over this junk. But it's been my salvation the time that I've been able to go out on the basketball court. And moments like in the locker room last night, I can assure you I didn't think about any of that other stuff in the locker room last night. So it's just great feelings and great times.
We'll stay here at the end of row 2.
Zach Schoenbrunn, New York Times. Roy, you've been putting numbers on the whiteboard again this season. What's the significance or the symbolism behind those numbers you put in the box there on the whiteboard after games, and why did you start doing that?
I started doing it in 1991, and we made it all the way to the national championship game. I've done it ever since. And I'm corny, but the significance is pretty easy. If you write a 32, that means there's still 32 teams playing, and you're one of them. And if you write 16 up, there's 16 teams still playing, and you're one of them. I guess that means we should keep y'all's butts out of the locker room so I didn't have to answer these questions, because that's something that we should be able to keep to ourselves. It's one of the things I despise about what's going on now. You can't have anything personal, private to your team, but we'll go behind the shed and do some different things just to see if we can keep something away from you guys.
We'll go here in the front row at the end of row 1.
Coach, the last time this program was in this situation, you were forced to play a guard, Stillman. And we just talked to him, and he said, I had no clue what to expect, had no clue how I was going to play, and I was petrified.
Mm-hmm.
Recall that and how you guys went into that and tried to, put up a good showing against Kansas.
Well, we played the game before without him, without Kendall, and Stillman started. And I just drew on the blank as either Ohio University or Miami of Ohio, I can't remember who it was, but that's bad for my brain, I guess. But and it really went down to the last play of the game, that game. And So he had the one game under his belt that he did it, but he was petrified, and so was I. It was a mutual feeling kind of thing. But he really did some nice things. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, he had 5 assists, 0 turnovers. I told him the biggest thing to do is don't hurt us. But the fact of the matter is, if you're playing an elite team like Kansas to go to the Final Four, just going in the game and not hurting your team is not enough, because the difference between winning and losing is so small. If you have a Kendall Marshall who doesn't really hurt you but also makes so many plays for everybody else, you're better. And I said at that point that if we had won that game, that could have been one of the truly great stories. Here's Stillman White that nobody had ever heard of, and he's starting and playing 40 minutes. And what was even just as bad as his backup was Justin Watts, who had never played the point guard in his life. And when he got in most games, he was the backup 4-man. And so then we brought him back there as the point guard. But Stillman, and the good thing is this last week or so, I mean, we let Stillman be Yogi the last couple of days in practice, and he ripped those guys a new one. I'm telling you, he made every shot right in Joel's face, Marcus's face, Nate's face, and he's gotten a lot better. And if he continues, he's going to play a lot of basketball for us next year.
Okay, do we have any more questions for Coach?
Okay, guys, thank you very much.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks for moving that leg.
Yeah, I got you.
Got it over where Bryce could hit it.